Reddit asks, what glamorized career path is actually a complete nightmare? Ballet dancer. Parents spend tens of thousands, or more, on training. They give up their entire teen years and schooling. Most elite ballet dancers are homeschooled and a large percentage move away from home for training in high school. Most dancers you see on stage in a ballet are paying to be there. The bottom rungs of ballet companies are pay to play. Then when you have paid to dance a few years you might be able to get a position that pays you with a dozen pairs of pointe shoes and a stipend for performances. Then maybe you'll be promoted to the bottom level where you get paid $20k a year and have no health insurance. All while putting your body through major torture. I wanted to be a ballet dancer so bad and was on the verge of making it into a major company, but my teacher gave me a talk that made me quit. I was sad at the time, but despite how much I love dance, living like that would have killed me. Chef. Long hours, shitty environment, nothing is ever good enough. I have a friend who's a very successful chef. He always told me, if you love cooking, just cook for friends. This was the major thing going to culinary school taught me. I'm a good cook, it's fun and relaxing. Thought I should make money doing what I love. Professional kitchen work gave me ulcers. I know so many cooks who have ulcers. Is it stress or all the coffee and cocaine? Stress entirely, for me. The coke came later. Fast pace. Everything has to be perfect. The smallest mistakes get you berated. I'm sure some kitchens are great, but I learned I'd rather cook for burps and compliments than money. My SO is an attorney and isn't loving life right now. She says, you know how you did term papers in college? Well, I do term papers every day, all day, endlessly. I don't practice law anymore, but when I did I mostly did criminal defense and occasional civil cases. Almost all the attorneys I knew all had great professional lives and personal lives comprised of utter shit. Alcohol abuse was rampant. Drug use was frequent. I knew attorneys who had pharmacy drawers in their office that they consulted when they needed a specific remedy. I knew a public defender who dropped dead of massive heart attack as he was leaving for court. One attorney I knew said he loved going to new restaurants because he and his wife didn't have sex anymore and that was his only real passion now. And I'm sure there are some attorneys who love their job. I'm sure there are many who are satisfied. But glamorous? Not in my experience. Fun times at the office. Radio announcer. Like a lot of other jobs in the entertainment industry, it's full-time work for part-time pay. Second jobs are common. Your pizza delivery guy just may be your favorite morning show host. At least, that's how the morning guy at my station made ends meet, until he was laid off in the last round of cutbacks. Now we're a hybrid station, which is the preferred business model these days. That's a fancy way of saying one person does everything, while you run a ton of syndicated programs 12-hour days of minimum wage. Yes. On air for a few years, minimum wage, only since there's a ton of radio and television journalism graduates wanting your position who would do it for free. Veterinarian. Insanely competitive schooling that crippled you with debt, with a depressing debt income ratio after graduation. Most of your patients don't like you, and most of the owners think you're getting rich upselling them unnecessary services when their dog's exploding eyeball cancer can be cured with raw organic exotic meat /CBD coconut oil, but you're withholding that information because you're in bed with big kibble. High stress, stagnant wages, long hours, shit holiday leave, rampant depression. Lost count of how many colleagues have committed suicide. Sometimes tempted to join them. Please don't join them. I appreciate our pets vets so much and would be heartbroken if I found out they hurt themselves. I don't know if nightmare is the word, but my wife has finally reached a lifelong goal of becoming a zookeeper at one of the top zoos in the US. She is very happy to have the opportunity to hand food to otters, have reindeer eat out of her hand, and brush okapi. However, she took on tens of thousands of dollars in student loans and did months of unpaid work at the zoo to get the job, which is seasonal, requiring she be off 2 months a year. She gets up at 4 AM and does farmhand style physical labor for 8 hours a day for about $9 an hour with no benefits. I'm thrilled that she reached her goal, and I'm happy that she is happy, but I'm pretty disenfranchised with the whole thing. Former animal care guy, did some zoo work, but more sanctuary and wildlife rehab work. The animals are rewarding, but for all the effort it takes, just to get your foot in the door, is crazy and the pay is not livable. At the last place I worked I also had horrible bosses. Sure, I could tell they cared about animals, but they had absolutely no people or management skills. I still don't understand how they got their current positions. I left the field, and while I miss the animals, I don't see myself going back because I like being able to buy things like food and toilet paper. Having the holidays off and not having to fight tooth and nail for a day off is nice too. Today I learned, all career paths appear to be nightmares. Political staffer. Most jobs in politics pay very little money and require you to work 80+ hours a week for a boss who is guaranteed to have a gigantic ego. You also have to look for a new job after every election day. Also, there's a huge brain drain. If you're a legislative staffer for a few years on Capitol Hill, a lobbying firm will double or triple your salary and the money is too nice to ignore once you start thinking about having a family. So, the best people leave through the revolving door. Those that stick it out and make it into management and leadership are either extremely ideologically driven, too burned out to move, suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, or petty tyrants. Listen up kids. Any job that seems glamorized has more than likely resulted in an oversupply of people wanting to do that work, while demand has not increased, thus bringing the compensation down for that line of work. Modeling. Too competitive and not enough food. Also, you will have to deal with a lot of fake people who took off of the ground too much. Sister's friend was a recognizable professional model for years. She was tall and skinny at 115 lbs. Her agent told her to slim down to 105 pounds. Her body fat was already minimal, and losing the weight meant losing muscle mass. At 105 pounds, she couldn't even walk a city block without exhaustion. Holy crap. This is kind of niche, but scuba dive instructor. I did it for 3ish years. I can't begin to tell you how many times people wished they had my job. A decent portion of the job was selling. I hate forcing people to buy things, but I had to have a certain percentage of people buy a mask, at least. The mask was about 25% of the cost of an open water course. Chances are they'd never use it again. Dive shop politics are insane. I worked 6.5 days a week for 90% of the year. If I turned down a course, I wouldn't be given another until there were no other instructors available. If there were no courses going on, I still had to be in the shop in case someone came in. During slow times there would be 7 or 8 instructors hanging around doing nothing. We all lived less than 5 minutes away. My dive shop would only hire people who were attractive enough. They'd also refuse to hire people who had trained at certain other dive schools in the area. The owners would go out of their way to be charming to the customers and then take the piss out of them as soon as they were out the door. The amount of responsibility is huge, and nobody even thinks about it until you point it out. You're taking 4 people into a deadly environment and have to bring them back in the same state they went into it in. If something goes wrong you can lose your license or go to jail. Where I was working, these were pretty exclusively early to mid 20-year-olds. Not only that, but if someone you trained has an incident at a later date, you can also be investigated and possibly prosecuted. I was diving in 30C, 86F, water. I constantly had an infection. Could be from a small cut, or my ears or my throat. It was constant. Long, very hard work days, 12-hour days were about the norm. I'd teach, be dragging around the tanks I was responsible for weighing 20 kilograms each as well as tons of other gear, and putting on my be happy around the customer face whilst keeping them from dying. It's like a combo of retail and warehouse work. It also diluted my love of diving. Even when diving with professionals now I have a hard time not constantly being on alert, waiting for someone to do something stupid, rather than enjoying the dive. Pay is dog shit. It's an amazing job, but it turned my hair grey by 25. Film crew. Yes, you sometimes meet famous people. Sometimes they're cool, often they're really not. The days are 14+ hours of work with a commute of who knows how long on either end, depending where you're shooting. You have half an hour for lunch. Coffee breaks are whenever you're not needed on set, so depending on your job, I was in camera, and we rarely had a down moment. It could be almost never. More often than not, someone on set is yelling. People lose their minds over making really shitty entertainment. You start work by 7 AM on Monday, and by Friday you're coming in at 4 PM, and leaving when the sun comes up on Saturday. There are no paid holidays, no paid sick days, no paid vacation. If you don't work enough qualifying hours, the union kicks your healthcare. And this is, if you're in a union. Non-union, much worse. Sexual harassment is through the roof, but the kids who get it the worst are afraid to say anything, or they'll lose their jobs. I have been told some real horror stories about famous actors, some of whom I still haven't seen get outed by the Me Too movement. And I'm not talking word of mouth, second-hand stories. I'm talking about young women who whisper to each other what shows to avoid and make them swear to never use their name, because if they want to work in this industry, they can't be known as a troublemaker. I watched so many co-workers fall into addictions, lose family, miss their children's lives, over the dumbest TV shows in the world. If you go union, the money can be good, but it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Although I love doing the job, it usually means I'm too tired to do other shit normal people do. That's all for this video. You made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing so you see the next videos. Thanks for watching, have a good one.